All right, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about how PTSD affects people on an individual basis and kind of how it affects us as a group. Those of us who have it, those of us who have severe symptoms, things like that. It's really hard for a lot of people to look at us and say, "Oh, wow, you're having a hard time today," or "You're in bad shape," or something like that. For the most part, most of us look and act outwardly to most people the same as we do when we're feeling okay and when we're having some pretty severe symptoms. So the reason I'm doing this today is over the past few days, I could feel myself starting to go down into this, just kind of spiraling down, knowing that the symptoms were kind of compiling and that they were coming back up. So right now, for me, I feel depressed, sad, worthless, um, like life isn't worth living. Um, Again, I'm not suicidal. That's not part of my personality, part of my psyche. I don't have suicidal thoughts. However, I do feel just miserable and down and sad. I mean, the sadness is it's overwhelming. Um, I mean, just to do this, I had to set up the computer, set up the lights, set up the microphone, have everything ready. I've got a script here in front of me that I'm kind of reading off of because there's no way I could do this if I had to come here to the studio, set this stuff up, turn everything on, and start recording. It it wouldn't have worked. I mean, I basically sat down in my chair, hit the record button, and this is how we're going forward. Uh, it's it's crazy that you can feel this way and have these, just terrible feelings, and on the outside you basically look the same. I probably even sound the same for most people. Um, so it is really difficult to see this in some people. Sometimes, you talk about that 1,000-yard stare. You can see it in some people where they're just zoned out and staring off into the distance. Yeah, that's usually a pretty good indicator, especially if you know somebody who's a veteran or a first responder. Um, However, it's not nearly as easy to pick up on as you might think. I mean, my behavior changes quite a bit. I become very, very irritable. I will not go to places where other people are around because I tend to have these bouts of anger that just pop out and there's nothing I can do about it. Um, I'm not a physically violent person when it comes to that. Uh, it's just, it is what it is. I mean, it's the symptoms come up, they're there, we have to deal with them, and our families have to deal with them. So I wanted to go over some of the things that the VA considers to be a traumatic event. That really, in order to get a disability rating, you have to have some of these things happen to you in order for them to give you a disability rating through the VA. So combat experience, like engaging in combat with enemy forces, experiencing fear, hostile military or terror activity, or serving in an imminent danger area, or serving as a drone aircraft crew member. Now that's an interesting one. We don't think about that, but I for some of those drone pilots, it's a little worse in some cases because they're back in the United States. They're going home to their families in the evening, and then the next day they're going out there and they're blowing people and stuff up. So I'm not a drone pilot, never have been, but combat with enemy forces, yes, I've been direct enemy contact. I've been shot at. I've been hit with IEDs. I've seen IEDs blow people up in front of me. So there's that. Sexual assault, trauma, or harassment, not as an adult. Traumatic personal interactions like physical assault, battery, robbery, mugging, stalking, harassment by a person who wasn't part of an enemy force, or domestic abuse or harassment by a partner. Okay, so as a kid, I was physically abused. I was beaten. I've been robbed. I've been stalked. Never been mugged. So, there's a lot of things in here. My wife is definitely not a domestic abuser. Um, so, it's all pieces, right? Nobody's going to have, at least I hope to God nobody has all of these experiences. It's tough enough just having a few. So other traumatic events like getting into a car accident, yep, done that one. Witnessing a natural disaster, yep, done that one. Working on burn ward or graves registration, no, haven't done that. Witnessing the death, injury, or threat to another person, to yourself, that was caused by something other than hostile military act, yeah. Terrorist activity or experience or witness friendly fire that occurred on a gunnery range during a training mission. That's not something I've experienced either, but again, you don't have to experience all these things. It's not an all or nothing kind of deal. So let's look at PTSD ratings. So a lot of these lower ratings, for the 0%, and what these percentage rates are, these are the compensation rates. So this doesn't mean that you're 70% non-functional. This is just the compensation rate that you get if you fall within the categories here that they've laid out. So 0 is basically a diagnosis without any real outward symptoms or symptoms that prevent you from working or interacting or engaging with other people. So 10% is mild, transient symptoms. So they come, they go, they're not there very often. And then we get into the impairment with occasional decrease in work and intermittent periods of inability to perform occupational tasks. So off and on, not too severe, but to the point where it really does affect your job. Once we get up to the 50% range, then we, reduced reliability and productivity due to such symptoms as flattened affect, circumstantial, circular. See, and this is the thing. When we get up here into the 70% range, it talks about problems with speech. And for me, I've got a large vocabulary. I use a lot of big words in my regular daily speech. I recognize words by their spelling and can pronounce them fairly easily. What's happening to me right now is I'm looking for it up here, illogical, obscure, irrelevant, and near continuous speech. So this is in the 70% range. This is the speech impairment that they're talking about. And I'm definitely dealing with that right now. Bouncing back and forth a little bit, not being able to read or pronounce things, having a difficult time speaking and expressing myself. And I'm also talking a lot with my hands. I'm noticing that. When this starts to happen, I really, really talk with my hands quite a bit. So anyway, the 50% level is fairly regular, lack of productivity at work, and some difficulty with interpersonal relationships. So the 70% rate, which is where I am on the VA scale, we talk about first, the first line here is occupational and social impairment with deficiencies in most areas such as work, school, family relationships, judgment, thinking, mood, due to some such symptoms. Again, I can't talk. Symptoms of suicidal ideation, obsessional rituals which interfere with routine activities, speech intermittently illogical, obscure, or irrelevant, near continuous panic or depression affecting the ability to function independently, appropriately and function appropriately and effectively. Impaired impulse control. No, I've never had that issue at all. Impaired impulse control such as unprovoked irritability, periods of violence, spatial disorientation. So you kind of lose your directionality. So I do that a lot. I'll wind up kind of spinning in circles, I guess. I'll be going to do something and I'll wind up turning around thinking I'm going the other direction. I get confused. I forget why I'm there, what I'm doing. Neglect of personal appearance and hygiene. Yeah, I didn't shower this morning and I haven't shaved in about 3 or 4 days. Um, I mean, just the thought of shaving right now, really, it seems like too much, I guess, is the only way I can describe it. I mean, it's a daunting task to the point where I'd rather do pretty much anything other than that. Just because you have to be fairly precise when you shave, and there's no way I'm going to do that right now. Um, so difficulty in adapting to stressful circumstances. Yeah, that's a big one. Most of the time, I'm fine. I can handle any level of stress, discomfort, people yelling at me. Doesn't bother me. And then the other one here is the inability to establish and maintain effective relationships. Okay, so all of these, I mean, most of them are pretty self-explanatory, and the way they manifest is not difficult to identify, right? So if you've got impaired impulse control, people, buying too much, engaging in dangerous activities, doing the same thing repetitively, okay, yeah, that pops straight forward. That's not terribly difficult to see. Yeah, some of us get really stinky in the hygiene area. VA had me doing psychosocial rehabilitation. That's what it was called. Where it was a group therapy session, basically, and you get together with a bunch of guys with PTSD, and you have a therapist there, and you talk through stuff. And that was a very stinky room. A lot of those guys hadn't probably showered in a month. So people who are normally clean who become stinky, well, okay, yeah, that's something you can look for. But this one, in the end here, the inability to maintain effective relationships, that is one of the more insidious pieces. So it's hard to deal with somebody with PTSD. I know my wife has a difficult time with it. A few years back, she told me she should be able to feel comfortable walking around the house, not worrying about me freaking out. During the day, that's not an issue. It's at night. So she goes to bed usually 3 to 4 hours before I do. And so she'll get up to go to the bathroom or something like that. And I'll be walking around. So it's dark. I've got hearing loss. I've got tinnitus. So I don't always hear her as she's walking up. And so the house is usually fairly dark at night because, it's night. And she'll walk up and she'll say something, or she'll walk up and I won't notice she's there, and I'll jump and I'll flip around like I'm about ready to swing. And it's part of what she has to deal with being married to me. Recently, my pain level has increased substantially over the last few months. And that makes your PTSD symptoms worse. So I've yelled at my wife twice now in the past 6 months. So we've been married 27 years, never yelled at her, never really had a fight. We've had disagreements like any married couple, but never any kind of fights. But yeah, in the past 6 months, I've yelled at her twice, to the point where if my sons actually saw me doing that or heard me doing that, they would both beat me down, which, they really should do if that were to arise. So the other part of this is friendships are very hard to establish and maintain. A lot of us, we don't want to engage with people. Having friendships gets to the point where it's a burden. It's difficult to deal with. Most people don't understand where you're coming from and what's going on. A few months back, I had a friend who I've known for 15 years. She told me that over the past year before that, that I was terrifying. Being around me was terrifying. Talking to me, engaging with me could be terrifying. And I never made threats or acted violent, anything like that. But it was just my understanding from what she was going for is just the nature in my behavior. There was a fear that I may become violent. And I didn't see that. I had no idea that that was the impression that she would have had. And, I feel bad about it because she shouldn't have to feel that way about being engaged with me, right? So I really don't know why she had that impression. But I also don't doubt that those feelings were real and legitimate when it comes to, how she was perceiving me. So, yeah, it is difficult. People don't understand us. So part of what's going on with me right now, not too long ago, over the course of a year, I pulled a couple of people's kids out of the water, 3 in fact, who had drowned. And that part of things doesn't bother me because I never knew or met these kids. So it wasn't like I had a personal relationship with them. Dealing with the family afterward can be very difficult. But I lost my brother I talked to my brother more than he talked to his wife, then I talked to my wife, then I talked to my kids or my friends. He and I were very, very close. And losing him really messed me up. And then a month later, I had a friend commit suicide. And that was difficult because his widow is a friend of mine. And so I deal with her on almost a daily basis. And so we have that trauma bond between the two of us, her losing her husband, me losing my friend. And that's made things difficult. So how do people engage with you when you're going through something like that? Well, that's even more difficult. So I was working with a group that was trying to help veterans and first responders with PTSD. And I was talking to one guy who was involved in the process. And he said that everybody knew that I was having problems. Everybody knew the trauma and stress that I was going through and what a hard time I was having just functioning, just talking to people. They knew that I was having a really difficult time. And this pisses me off. He said that the reason that they hadn't reached out to help me is because they didn't know how to help. All right? Layperson off the street, sure, I get it. But this is a person involved in an organization helping veterans and first responders with PTSD. Didn't know how to help. Somebody that's part of the group. They know where I live. They have my phone number. They have my email address. If you can't get a hold of me by phone, by text, by email, well, maybe come to my house. Check on me. We have to take care of each other. We're losing too many of us to suicide. It's not just veterans, it's first responders as well. We go through a lot of trauma. We go through a lot of shit. We have to take care of each other because obviously others aren't. This guy who told me he didn't know what to do, well, he's not a veteran. He's not a first responder. As far as I know, he's never had any of these severe traumas, which, again, fine. People need to volunteer. They need to help. But apparently other people do not know how to deal with us. They don't know how to help us. So we have to help ourselves and we have to help each other. And for helping ourselves, most of us wind up self-medicating. A lot of weed, a lot of alcohol, a lot of stuff like that. See it every single day. I hear the stories every single day. So the VA is not going to help us. There's very little infrastructure in place for first responders. And obviously, there's a lot of people in the community that just plain and simply don't know how to do it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. That's what it's like. It's the frustrations. It's what we deal with. If you know somebody's got PTSD, who's struggling with it, who's got problems, reach out. Talk to them. If somebody goes dark for a few weeks or a few months, go find them. physically go see them. If you're not close enough, send someone else over there. Send the cops for a health and welfare. That was one of the things before we lost my brother that happened. He was drinking heavily, and I couldn't deal with him. He actually hit me in the face with the chair, threw stuff at me, and the chair was a metal yard chair. It was a painful experience. So somebody wound up calling the police because of his behavior, and to the credit of the local police department, they got all the information and they sent a couple of Marines out that were cops to deal with my brother, who was a Marine. So stuff is there. Get creative. Don't sit by and let somebody that you know, somebody that you love, take their lives, hurt somebody else, wind up in jail because you're not reaching out. So anyway, that's all I've got. I'm going to try and see if I can function for the rest of today. So see you in the next video.